Hey everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us for today's explainer. We're going to take a fascinating journey into a true story about what happens when complete surrender meets, well, unimaginable generosity. Some countries welcome you with fancy airports and high-end hotels, but this explainer, it's about a place that welcomed weary travelers with outright miracles. We're unpacking this incredible historical account that's going to completely challenge how you think about synchronicity, faith, and the way the universe just provides when you least expect it. So imagine this for a second. What actually happens when you trust destiny with absolutely zero backup plan? I mean, really picture it. You've been hitchhiking for weeks across the vast, unforgiving yet totally stunning landscapes of Africa. You are completely exhausted. You're quite literally flat out of money. There's no safety net, no smartphone to pull out for an emergency wire transfer, nowhere to sleep. You're in this incredibly vulnerable spot, just standing there in the middle of a foreign capital city, relying entirely on the wild hope that things will just somehow work out. Section 1. Arriving empty-handed, the stranger who knew us.
Okay, let's dive right into this. So our travelers had just reunited in Lusaka, which is the capital of Zambia. And by what feels like pure coincidence, both pairs stepped out of different cars at almost the exact same moment. They're just standing there on the side of the road, dusty, exhausted, and completely broke. But literally right as the reality of their situation sets in, this Zambian man named Gary just walks right up to them, no suspicion, no grilling them about their life story or asking what's in it for him. He just met their physical exhaustion with pure, unconditional generosity. Gary looks at this group of stranded, penniless travelers and says 5 simple words. Come stay at my house. Just like that. They explain their wild situation, that they were trying to hitchhike down to South Africa and were essentially just trusting destiny. And Gary? He didn't even blink. He just took them straight out to his quiet, peaceful dairy farm in the countryside. It's just one of those profound moments of human connection, right? Where a complete stranger just opens his door to you when you need it the absolute most. Section 2. Broadcast to a Nation. The Unexpected Platform. Let's move on and see how this builds, because this wasn't just a quiet few days resting on a farm. Actually, it turns out Gary's uncle wasn't just anybody. He just so happened to be the president of Zambia's national television. No way, right? So when he hears about these unique travelers crashing at the dairy farm, he offers to set up an interview. Within 24 hours, they go from being stranded on the dusty streets of Lusaka to sitting in a national broadcast studio, which, as you'll see, catapults them into local temples and ultimately to a mystical experience of Victoria Falls. It's this rapid, unbelievable domino effect of destiny. Now, during that first national broadcast at 5 p.m., right after the evening news, the travelers sat there completely barefoot, wearing simple Indian whites. The interviewer was sincere, deeply respectful, and honestly entirely devoid of skepticism. And the result? The station received hundreds of phone calls. The switchboards literally lit up, with citizens all across Zambia asking one question: what was that? The response was so overwhelmingly positive and just full of genuine curiosity that the station actually invited them back for a second broadcast the very next day. I mean, talk about a ripple effect. Section 3. Unprecedented Devotion. Welcomed by the community. And this brilliantly illustrates how those 2 television broadcasts changed absolutely everything. The local Indian community in Zambia saw them on TV, heard their message, and immediately opened their doors. They went from being these anonymous hitchhikers to giving spiritual discourses every single day. And just like that, these travelers who were, let's be honest, practically starving a few days ago, were suddenly being fed 6 major meals a day. 6. In the Zambian Indian community, much like in India, it is customary to accept food when it's offered. And man, offered it was. Every single meal was an absolute feast. But the royal treatment didn't stop at endless food. The community just showered them with gifts. We're talking money to help fund their journey, watches, fresh clothes, the whole shebang. It really reinforces this powerful theme we keep seeing: arriving with absolutely nothing, totally surrendering to the journey, and subsequently being given everything you could possibly need, and then some. Now, there is one specific moment that truly shows the sheer impact of their visit. In one Hindu temple, the priest actually removed a picture of Krishna and replaced it with a picture of Maharaji, the spiritual leader the travelers were speaking about. To put that into perspective for a second, this would be akin to a Catholic church taking down an image of Christ. We're looking at this totally impartially, just as a sheer illustration of profound devotion. It just goes to show the incredible depth of the community's openness to the message being shared, and how deeply Zambia was awakening to it at that time. Section 4. The Circle of Light.
a mystical encounter at Victoria Falls.
So, the crucial point is, as their incredible time in Zambia drew to a close, they visited the legendary Victoria Falls. Just picture this with me for a second. You're standing on a bridge overlooking this massive, roaring waterfall. The mist is rising high up into the air, and you're surrounded by this lush forest canopy where hundreds of monkeys are just swinging through the trees. It's an almost otherworldly setting. And right there on that bridge, a full 360-degree rainbow encircled the travelers, a complete, unbroken circle of light wrapping around them in the mist. It wasn't just a beautiful optical illusion. For them, nature was literally speaking. It was destiny's way of confirming that they were exactly where they were meant to be.
Section 5. Seeds blooming decades later. 50 years of impact. Now, you might think the story ends there, right? The travelers leave Zambia, they continue their hitchhiking journey, roll credits, but actually the true impact of this trip rippled way forward through time. The spiritual seeds planted in those temples, in those living rooms, and during those television broadcasts in the 1970s lay dormant for half a century. Then, 50 years later, the spiritual leader Prem Rawat visited a prison in Zambia. The seeds planted decades earlier had finally beautifully bloomed. Zambia remembered, and that circle that began with the rainbow was finally completed. Now, what's really interesting about this is what we like to call the ledger of Zambia. This is why this story actually matters to you and me today. It proves that generosity appears when you truly trust. It shows that strangers can become family overnight. It reminds us that miracles often happen quietly, and that when you stop forcing your own plan and simply surrender, an abundance you couldn't have ever planned for steps in to guide your path.
There is this beautiful, poetic summary of this entire journey called Zoran's Whisper. It goes, "Traveler, Zambia showed you that the universe provides when you walk with trust. You arrived empty-handed and left overflowing." That is just the ultimate bookend to their story, isn't it? They came with empty pockets, and they absolutely left overflowing with kindness, spiritual fulfillment, and a profound confirmation of their path.
Which brings us to this powerful final thought. Zambia was not an accident. It was not some random detour on their map. It was an initiation. And honestly, it begs the question for all of us. What if the unexpected detours in your own life, those moments where you feel completely stranded or out of options, what if those are actually initiations into something far greater? I really hope this explainer has left you reflecting on your own journey, and I cannot wait to guide you through our next fascinating topic. Keep learning, keep trusting the path, and I'll see you next time.